All right, so obviously with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston now on the roster, that means Aaron Rodgers is over for New York in terms of their quest to land him. And we always knew that was going to be a long shot. I know there was some reporting out there that the Giants felt really good about it. I never got the sense that the Giants felt good about it. They always knew that this was going to be a long shot, from what I can gather. But credit to them for trying Stafford, trying Rodgers, but in the end they settle on Russell and Jameis. So Aaron Rodgers is still not signed with the team. We know that he took that visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers, spent hours with Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin. And we're all just waiting. And, we spent the last few weeks talking about what Rodgers perhaps wants. And it was pretty clear from the people I was talking to that it was the Minnesota Vikings. And with the Minnesota Vikings basically putting this whole thing on pause for now because they want to see what J.J. McCarthy could have or has in these OTAs to see where his recovery's at. Then recently, we saw Minnesota Vikings GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah speak to the media about free agency and also address questions from reporters about what exactly has been going on between the Minnesota Vikings and Aaron Rodgers. Here's what he had to say, Chase.
Did you or Kevin speak with Aaron directly?
Yeah, so you're talking about a player that Kevin's known for a long time, and so when you have a relationship like that, I'm typically the type that's like, hey, whoever's got the best relationship, talk to him. And so Kev, he's a bit of a if I'm like the maybe like the dork Elvis, maybe Kev's like the QB Elvis type of guy. He's got a lot of respect in that community, and he deserves it for a lot of great reasons, not just for the what he brings from a schematic standpoint, but just how he cares about players, how he cares about people. He cares about, a lot of times the environments around quarterbacks aren't really supportive to quarterbacks. And so for that reason, he's got a great relationship with a lot of these guys. And he's got a great relationship with Aaron. They've had a lot of conversations. Obviously, he looped us in, and we kind of met and go from there. It's a unique thing to talk about a player of that caliber, and I'm always somebody who wants to learn and grow myself. And so, just being involved in those dialogue was really special.
So, pretty transparent from Kwesi.
Very transparent. Very seems to the door is not closed at all. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, this is a future Hall of Fame quarterback. This is a 4-time MVP. This is not something you just breeze by. You don't just have a quick convo over coffee. You sit there and you have full conversations with your staff, with your coaches, with your front office, with your ownership, and you say, we are built to win, and Aaron Rodgers is available. How is this going to affect J.J. McCarthy? How will this affect the team dynamic? What does Aaron Rodgers bring? This is what I'm translating from what he just said in terms of how they dealt with this. This was not some blow-by conversation. This was days of intel, days of conversations and debate. Should we or should we not do this?
Well, you sound like you're like a GM, because that's exactly what I was going to say. You got to weigh everything. Like you like when you're dealing with a player,
Chase.
Like the phone line's always open.
I would argue that Kwesi was a horrible general manager if he didn't bring that to the table, if he didn't discuss it, right? Like if you have a quarterback that's young, that's never taken a snap, who's coming off a big injury, and you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback available that you would have never thought would be available. It is your job to say what is going to win us a trophy.
That's exactly where I've landed on this entire conversation. People that watch this show, we have a lot of Minnesota Vikings people. They are very, very strong J.J. McCarthy fans and advocates. Okay,
I like that. They should be.
I love it, and they should be, because I think he will be a good quarterback in this league with Kevin O'Connell, because Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. However, I also am allowed to have the opinion that Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl this year. Okay? It's not saying that, J.J. McCarthy can't go on and be this all-pro type. I don't know. The Vikings don't know, and quite honestly, they're telling you they don't know by not closing the door completely on Aaron Rodgers. That's all this is. I think they give him the spring. I think they figure out where he's at physically. I think they figure out where he's at mentally. And if Aaron Rodgers is still around, which that's a whole nother thing. It's like, it seems to me right now, I don't even know if Aaron wants to play for anyone other than Minnesota, because Aaron has not come out and said, I'm for sure playing. We don't know if he's playing. Like, I was talking to James Jones, who is his boy, 8 seasons with him on the facility, our Fox show. And James is like, honestly, 12 could hang it up. Like, he'd be totally fine hanging it up, I feel like. Like, he went out the wrong way, but there's so much stuff mentally and physically that go in to get ready for a season of football. You got to move. You got to learn a new offense. You got to learn a new system. You got to learn new teammates. You got to have the media scrutiny. You got to all this stuff. Does Aaron want to go through that again? I don't know if he wants to go through it with Pittsburgh, because I don't think Pittsburgh has a roster that is championship ready. I know that Minnesota has a championship ready roster right now. For God's sake, they won 14 games with Sam Darnold playing quarterback. You don't think Kevin O'Connell can have that Aaron Rodgers flair with, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones? I mean, they're surrounding everything they did in free agency. I think it's a smart move just to keep the door open.
I think Kevin O'Connell's strength has always been getting the most out of his quarterbacks. He figures out what they do well, and he taps into it and highlights the heck out of it. There are those that think, well, how would Aaron Rodgers fit in this offense? How? He likes to do things his way. How's that going to work with Kevin O'Connell, who likes to do things his way? I think that is such a lazy argument to make. You're talking about two greats at what they do. They will figure out how to make that marriage work if that were to arrive at that point. For now, that's not it. JJ McCarthy has not been told he is the starter. He's not been told he's the number one guy. Even before Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold walked away, or at least went to other teams, it was always discussed that it would be a competition this summer, right? So they're not telling him anything. That is also telling to me, right? Because going back to what you said, they don't know. How could they know? He's coming off injury. They need to see it. And yep. I do think there's a world, and I know Vikings fans don't want to see it, whether it's their hate for Aaron Rodgers, whether it's they feel that JJ's not getting a fair shake, whatever the reason is for why some Vikings fans don't want to see Aaron Rodgers, they have to come to grips. There is a world that exists this year where Aaron Rodgers hangs out and the Minnesota Vikings pick up the phone and they make the call. It could happen.
Yeah, let me ask you this from a person. Well, I can give my answer from a quarterback standpoint, but how long is like too long? Like,
yeah, how long do you wait?
You know what I mean? Like, do you get into training camp when it opens? You're like, okay, we're good, and then maybe I think he needs at least 2 to 3 weeks to get up to speed, like halfway through training camp. I mean, what do you think?
You
from
tell
that
me
aspect?
how long you think a guy like Aaron Rodgers would need.
From a guy
I'm thinking a day.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's not as easy as that, to be honest with you.
I know.
Because that's when you get into the nuances of the offense that Kevin O'Connell's runs is very, very pre-snap motion formation shift heavy. Rodgers hates that. So there is going to have to be a way they work together, like you awesomely said, for lack of better words, that they come together and they find a mesh, because I don't think Kevin O'Connell's just going to let Aaron Rodgers sit in the shotgun and just do quick game all day. I do think there's something to that. So I think that's sort of probably what they're working on. But for me, it's like, if you get into training camp and you get 2 weeks in and you're like, all right, let's bring Aaron in, I think he needs that 3 weeks minimum to not only physically get up to speed, but mentally as well.
Yeah. So bottom line, the Vikings haven't closed the door on Aaron Rodgers. It's very much a real thing if it gets to that point. There's also a world where JJ McCarthy shows up to OTAs and looks as sharp and confident and ready to go as we saw him in training camp last year. And I'm sure that is what the organization is hoping for. And
yeah,
we'll just see
10th.
We'll see what they
of course
do.
They hope.
Over the next few weeks. But, just talking to people around the league about what is happening in Minnesota, most people have the same opinion that you and I have had, which is they obviously have some trepidation. They have some concerns here. It's quite apparent. It's just, what are you going to do next? I spoke to one GM who said, you don't worry about whatever's going to happen in 26, 27. You try to go win the Super Bowl this year. But I've seen the other side of it too. I've been in a situation where you're in on this guy and let's be loyal to him and see this out and try to put him in the best scenario for the next few seasons and take a couple shots at it. So we'll see what the Minnesota Vikings decide to do. And heck, we will see what the Steelers will do. We will see what Aaron Rodgers will do. Because here we are now in the end of March and we are still talking about where is Aaron Rodgers. Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.